Consciousness Rising Zimbabwe and beyond. And here we are in another conversation with myself, Antonella Bargione, and Tania Norris.
Hello everyone.
Welcome,
Hi.
Tania.
So
So today we're gonna speak and talk about a topic that probably is unfamiliar to many of our listeners, and it's about entities. We delve very in depth into that, and how they can affect our state of mental health, and also how they can influence us as well, to do things that we generally are not prone to do. And so also because at the moment, if you look at what's happening in the world, and you see all the uprisings, the riots in the States, in Zimbabwe, yesterday there was, in Highfield, we had also issue about, people are starting to rise, yes, and we don't know where it's going. So we are just offering with this conversation another perspective, or possible perspective, of what is also happening in the world. So, Tania, what is an entity? What are entities?
Well, so entities are something that have been talked about in ancient times and antiquity for a long, long time. You know, obviously, if we go back to our religious texts, we've got, even in the Bible, we talk about demons and Satan and such like. But prior to the Bible, we go back to the ancient, to the agnostics. And they believe that the God of this earth is a glorified demon. But a demon, there's a God who created everything, but boss in charge of this earth is a glorified demon who doesn't have humanity's best interest at heart. And underneath him, there's an echelon of what they call archons. So we talk about archons as being some kind of negative energy. They can be physical beings or energetic beings or both. Okay. So that is on the agnostic side. Also, we look at the Book of Enoch. In the Book of Enoch, we have talked about there, we have the Nephilim who came down, and they were the watchers, but they were also like fallen angels. And they were referred to as angelic sailors. So as an angelic sailor, they could move between worlds, and they also referred to as archons. The interesting thing about that lot was that they mated with the woman on earth, which they weren't meant to do. And a lot of people believe or think, and there is quite a bit written in history about this, is how the monarchies, it's like a royalty of blood that runs through, because obviously they were from the heavens, humans are on the earth, so it's a way that say royalties deem themselves as divine, and we know that throughout ages all royalties, emperors, kings have deemed themselves as divine. Again, so they say this is where the bloodline comes from. So anyway, so that's just on archons. The other thing is they have Edgar Cayce, who was referred to as the sleeping prophet. You know about it. He did thousands and thousands and thousands of cases for people. They used to write in, and he would go into like a trance. And very often people that were suffering from addictions, people that were angry, all of the time it came up as possession. Okay. So throughout our sort of known history, we know about entities. I mean, what can we think about it as being maybe some kind of pockets of energy that has never been processed? We have disincarnate spirits, people that have died and haven't moved on. I personally don't refer to those kind of beings as entities. Well, for me, the entities are the mind parasites that they talk about. Another interesting thing is the Church of Scientology. When you go through levels and you have to pay so much money to get to the next level and the next level and so on and so forth, when you get to the very highest level, So I'll save you all a mint of money here and tell you what the big secret is.
Okay.
The big secret is that we are being controlled by alien entities, negative alien entities that are talking to us.
Okay.
And influencing us. Then that also comes now to ufology. We talk about archons there. You know, those little grey alien beings with the big eyes, and also some reptilian types. They all belong to this archon family, which gets back to the agnostics who believe that they were angelic sailors or extraterrestrials.
And what happened? They went.
Well, they're here. They've always been here, and they always will be here. So entities come from many different aspects. Like I said, some are physical, some are energetic, some are both.
So the reason why they want to control our minds is to stay in control themselves.
Well, yes, yeah, exactly. Well, first of all, is fear. These archons live off fear.
Yes.
So fear to them is energy, it's food, it's like the sunlight is to us. So that's the one thing. So the more they can keep us controlled, the more they can keep us in fear, then the more food they have, you know? So it's better for us to be in fear.
And fear, we've spoken many times before, keeps our frequency very low. Another thing that we have to talk about frequency is imagine us, well, we are being made of energy. Energy is all we are. And so it depends on our frequency, where our frequency is tuned on. Think of a radio. So if you have got 108 is a capital talk, or I don't remember the frequencies, but so if our frequency is very low, where there's shame, guilt, it's simpler for us to attract this type of energy. I've got a dear friend of mine, she speaks about them as lodger, not paying rent. So why do we want this type of energy attached to us? So then, because frequency also, like we can see in a certain, only a certain range between ultraviolet and ultra-red and infrared, it's the same also with sound. So for example, if you think about the elephant and they are rambling, through their rambling, they can talk miles and miles and miles over the land. Again, is which frequency we are tuning on. There is so much that we can't see, we can't hear, but it's actually happening, and this is what you are.
And they have now, exactly, and they actually now have technology that can measure all those frequencies. But you know, in olden days, it was all just speculation. It's no longer speculation at all. So, I mean, you talk there about ultrasound. You know, in these old castles and in big cities, I know in Scotland as well, you have these haunted places. And it's true, if you go in there, you will feel bad, you will feel something. But with technology, they've actually realized that it's ultrasound. It's from all the trains and the rumblings of what's going on underneath the city, and their tube stations and underground rail creates ultrasound. And then that ultrasound goes through all the tunnels, and that's, it impacts you, you feel bad, you get a sense of something's wrong. Okay, so it's a real thing, ultrasound.
And it's a different type of communication.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep. So there are all of those things, but there's also the correlation between mental illness and entities. You know, and I know that in shamanic and what other sort of in other cultures.
Indigenous, let's call them indigenous culture. Yeah, all autochthon culture, whatever you want to call them.
So you have people that are schizophrenic and other mental disorders that hear voices all the time.
Yes.
Very often that might be the case, some kind of mental disruption in the brain, but very often it's a little bit more than that. It can be these entities actually influencing you, talking to you, and hijacking you.
Yes.
Mm.
And those voices are real. I mean, I watched recently an interview by Dr. Jerry Marzinsky, and is a licensed psychotherapist, and all the talk was on entities. So he worked for many, now he's retired, but he worked for many years with psychiatric patients in state hospital, state prison, emergency room. So he had lots of experience. And he was always curious about finding out where our thoughts were coming from since he was a kid. And then he did the PhD. And in this PhD, at some point when he asked that question to his tutor or teacher, nobody could answer, and they actually asked him to forget about that question, because for most, and again I'm generalizing, most psychiatric units decide that it's better to medicate the patients so we don't have problems. So he started his own personal search over the years to find out that actually most of those voices actually were real. Yes, there was an amount of patients, especially with the schizophrenic, there was a big amount of patients having real medical problems and instability in mental faculties. But for many, actually, there were actual voices. Until one day he decided, he said, he wrote this book that is called An Amazing Journey into the Psychotic Mind. And where he speaks about all this experience of his. And then one day he used to go swimming after work just to unwind. And that night he swam so much and that he went into almost a trance state of meditation. Until at some point he ended up in the middle of the lake and he couldn't almost see the shore, the light of the shore. And there is where everything started to happen for him, because he had done scuba diving before. So he was really a person who knew how to be in the water and now not to become scared. Mm. And at some point he started to hear this voice, "You will never make it to the shore."
Was it his own voice?
Oh, he started to hear this, it sounded like his own voice. And then I said, what is that? And then this voice kept coming in different way to tell all the things that you would have failed if you would have tried to go back to the shore. Until the point that he knew, like, because I said he was a scuba diver, so he knew everything not to drown. I mean, how to do things not to drown and how to be safe. So until the point he started to almost drown. And then there was something within, that's not me, and he was coming down. And then again, fight with his voice. I said, what are you talking? I mean, there was this mad conversation going around. And this is a psychiatrist, I mean, psychotherapist. And so finally he made it. But that one gave him the actual proof of what's happening. And then he mentioned another thing, because at that point, following the work of another clinical psychologist, Dr. Wilson Van Duden, we're going to put all these links below. So this was the first clinical psychologist who was holding coherent conversations with the voices of the schizo patients. So at least he didn't feel crazy himself, because there was somebody else who did it before him. And so from there on, he started to really give a voice and let those voices talk through the patients. And what came out actually one day was that he started to see like a spark all going in the room. And he got so scared, but of course he was the doctor, he had to maintain cool, maximum than cool. And this spark was even sparkling. And at some point, he was having the conversation. He was telling the patient, just let this. Here we have the sparkle coming. So let the sparkle go away. Just go away. Why do you want to be with us? And at some point, the sparkle ended up. I mean, went to the ceiling and just vanished. And the patient left. He was so scared that for 2 months, entire months, he didn't see these patients. At some point, he was too curious, so he brought it back and asked him, so did you see, when we met last time, did you see the sparkle? And so I said, yeah, I saw the sparkle. So it was all about, they wanted for you to be scared. So what did the boys say when you left? Oh, they tried to bring this knife. It was in a prison ward, and they've got, I can't remember the name, they've got a very simple way to make knives. And it's got a name. And said, oh, he told me to bring this knife and just kill you. And I said, and he said, why didn't you do that? Oh, because I didn't find the knife. So it's and he gives lots of these examples, but also the interviewer Joshua of Dharma Portal, he asks him, he starts to make a parallel, which I find quite interesting. Is it possible with all this upheaval that is happening at the moment? Is it that these voices are directing wrongly, or being bloodthirsty, or whatever thirsty, so that what is happening at the moment is actually could be, and we're not saying it is, but could be a reflection of that?
Well, I think whenever there's a crisis, I mean, like a war, like a world war, whatever, they are out in drones, these entities. They're out in drones, just feeding and feeding. And what they're doing is just strengthening their own legions, if you want to call it a legion. Interesting thing there, and I'm sure it was this Jerry doctor,
Jerry Marzinsky.
He drew a correlation between, because he worked in prisons, but he drew a correlation between different institutions, and he found out that it isn't just exclusive thoughts, that different people in different institutions are having the same thoughts.
Okay.
They've been given the same instructions. You see, so it's almost like some kind of a parallel thing, or a frequency that which would lure to the idea, or lean more to the idea that it's an external force and not an internal force, because everyone in their own individual evolution wouldn't have the same thoughts. You know, the same negative thoughts. So yeah, it's a very fascinating story.
But basically, can we say that they're conscious parasitic entity? Yeah, I mean, it's about having leeches from you.
And we invite them in.
Yes. How do we do that?
We invite them in through, say, bad behavior, or lower behaviors, you know, like through addictions, we can invite them in. Just through negative thinking, we can invite them in. So that's why it's always important to keep your vibration as high as possible. I personally think we all have them. Some of them are maybe less harmful than others. Some just sit there because it's cozy. They're not necessarily trying to influence you. But yeah, so I think clearing out your energy field often is probably a very good thing to do. But it also stands to reason. If we're living in a multi-dimensional universe, and there's aspects, I mean, we're calling in good angels, we're calling in God, we're calling in ascended masters, or Jesus, or however that works for you.
Ancestors, whatever is your...
Ancestors, whatever works for you, you're calling them in. And they come, they also there, not necessarily if you call them in, they sort of hover around to protect you as well. So it makes sense that there would also be lower vibrational entities around as well. All right. In a multi-dimensional universe, it's not just the good out there, there's also the bad out there.
Yeah, sure.
You know, so it's to keep in our consciousness is what you're actually going to be attracting.
Yes.
I know we've had a conversation about this before, is using second-hand clothes.
Yes.
Second-hand furniture. You know, everything has a vibration, and these things can stick anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm very careful with things like that.
And also in a simpler way, maybe they're not entities, but they could be thought forms.
Correct.
So there is, for example, if you have a fight in your own home, especially now in Zimbabwe, we've got our homes are built on bricks, and bricks are made of silica, and silica, the function of that mineral is to absorb energy, to absorb stuff. So whenever we have could be fights, could be heavy conversation, prolonged grief and sadness, that energy tends to stick in our homes. And that's, for example, most of ancient cultures, they all have a way to clear those type of energy. One of the quick one could be by smudging, which with the power of the fire and the smoke, it absorbs and dissolves that type of energy. So one could be sage. Here we can use the resurrection plant. There is also, I found out in my own practice that whatever has got a silvery look, like wormwood, is also good, lavender. Whenever the leaves have got a silvery look, with different function, but they can do that. Okay. And also our intent, because let's remember that whenever we do healing, whenever we want to change, our intent, our being must be there 100%. Otherwise, it's taking a tablet. It's like going to a doctor, ask for a tablet who is going to save us. No, we have to make this step, also wanting to come out from this way of being.
No, I agree.
Yes.
I agree, but you have to recognize it first and
yes,
and sense it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And on that, I can add another story with a client of mine. I won't say, well, let's call it George for, I want for anonymity. So George came to me and said that he was feeling very, very strange. He got a part in a film where there was a guy that was supposed to go and shoot another guy in a diamond deal. They were going on the plane. One of those high action thriller stories. But he was the date of the shooting came closer and closer, and he thought, this is weird. I feel like in my mind the scene is playing and I can make it better. How can I really make realistic? Yes, where we are using, what are they called? Bullets? No, rubber bullets. We're using rubber bullets. Yes, but how can I make it? So he started entertaining kind of morbid thoughts about the scene, and at some point he stopped and said, I don't know, but that's not me. That's not me. And when he spoke to me, it was very clear. So let me check. And I said, no, actually, there is an entity with you. Actually, we were doing the end. And we cleared them up. So what happens is that these entities uses us to make us doing something for their own pleasure, which is not, again, is not life affirming. It's something it's a deviation to behavior, which deviation.
So, and Maya Angelou, I remember listening to a talk of hers, and she said that thoughts get in everywhere. Now that's a philosophy, but in reality, and like I said, we have technology now that can measure these things, and that is the truth. Thoughts have got a substance, and they can get in everywhere.
Yes, and again, and also, I know for women, I don't know for men, but with all the women I worked over the years, there's so much self-loathing. Everything, you just get up in the bed, you turn just to get up, And your mind starts to say, oh my gosh, I didn't do that one. I mean, this continuous flagellation. Oh, I've got 1 inch more on my waist. Oh. And then in the end, what that does is that the frequency gets lower. Yeah.
So it's to recognize. And there, I think it was Jason Quit, and I was listening to something, and he said about these thought forms. All you have to do is say, you are not, these are not my thought forms, leave now.
Yes.
These are not my thought forms, leave now. So you kind of commanding that to leave.
Yes. And it doesn't matter if you call them entities or you call them ego, it's kind of the same in the sense whenever you recognize that you are in a pattern of self-flagellation or not supporting yourself, in a sabotage way, let's call it a sabotage. Yeah. So just say, okay, thank you, I hear you. I'm gonna do it differently anyway. That is something that can really help. That's something that can really help. Sometimes it doesn't, and maybe you can ask for help.
There are a few solutions. We're getting back to Edgar Cayce. So he used to come up and sort of diagnose this as a possession. And what if, in his treatment for that was gold.
The essence of gold. No,
I don't know if it's the essence of gold. So from what I can understand, do you know how we make colloidal silver? Okay, with the metal probes, and you run an electric charge through it. I think that was what they did with gold. I don't know, it wasn't called colloidal gold. I'm calling it that. But for 30 days, and then whether those people actually drank that water or they washed in that water, I don't actually know the answer to that. But so gold was a solution, and it's quite interesting if you think, if again go back to antiquity, maybe the ancients knew something because everyone's just mad about gold. You know, all the pharaohs, all the emperors, everything had to be lined with gold.
Protective.
Yeah, to protect you.
Well, also the gold is the symbol of the sun, it's the symbol of the lion, it's the symbol of Zimbabwe.
So yeah, I think if we visualize just gold through us and shining outside of us, that can also be a deterrent.
Yeah, it's the energy of the sun, and sun was God.
Yes. Yes.
Because the sun was giving us life. I mean, if there is no sun, there is no life anyway. And yeah, I know that by creating rituals, you can also say goodbye to these entities. Okay, this is a different story because that was the spirit of my grandmother was with me. Just before I came to Zimbabwe, I was at that point I was 33, my 30s, early 30s, and everybody was telling me, "You look like your grandmother. You look like your grandmother. You look like your grandmother." And then what happens was that at some point she became attached to me energetically because our frequencies were very close. That sense of responsibility that she had towards her family. Yeah, I have it. Oh, I had it. And so I was the most eligible one to stick to. And it was diagnosed to me, and they told me, no, just do a ritual, just do a candle, just light up a candle every night. And you put the prayer, you say, thank you very much for being with me, but I can go on my own way now. And you will always be with me as an ancestor. And then after I did that, and I said, how do I know when it's finished? And she said, don't worry, just trust, you will know when she's gone. So I started to have this every night for maybe 2 weeks or so. I was lighting the candle, I was talking to her, I was thanking her and the blessing and that she was free to go to the light. And then one night, it was incredible. We went to a club. I was dancing, and with a friend of mine, we did just I don't know what you call it in English, but when you go on the shoulder of someone and then you swing on the shoulder of the other person. And at some point, while you interlock arms, and at some point I could feel like, boom. And the day after, I started to have like a blue spot on my arm. I was like, okay, bye. I know that you're gone. Blessings. So that was quite dramatic, actually, because when I do that with clients, it doesn't happen that it's not generally, I mean, it's not that dramatic. But, and then after that, nobody told me you look like your grandmother anymore. It was just like, what? What are we talking about? And so that's my experience with that.
But I think that's an interesting story. Maybe everyone who's listening can sort of reflect on that and wonder if they are themselves, or if they do have what family members are hanging around, if they're hearing that kind of language, or you just like the father, you just like the father, you just, you know, maybe have a look at that. Something important to get rid of as well. Not that they're all negative, but that sometimes just by interfering with your space, it's being negative.
Yes, and also, let's say, in our case, the fact that our bridge was the sense of responsibility. Do I really needed to take all that responsibility? No. So it's
so would you say, like, sometimes you get this, like I have, say, in my family, my eldest son, he's always thought that he's the boss of the family.
Right. Okay.
He is, and we'll be grateful for that, you know. But sometimes I look at that and I wonder, from a young age, okay, I was divorced, I had 4 children, all of this, so maybe he thought it is natural rite of passage. But I think, yeah, maybe that's something, you know, I often looked at him and thought, you know, where does this come from? That you feel like you're responsible for everyone.
Yeah. And well, that we will need to check, but it's a possibility.
But I mean, in that case, if people do have these attitudes about each other, it can be very freeing.
Yes. It's
freeing to say, well, actually, hell no, I'm not responsible for anyone.
Absolutely. Yes. So remember, you're not responsible for everyone. You are responsible for your part, but not for the one of your parents, your grandparents. Yes. Then if you are there, then yes, if you want to help other people to go to school or other, you choose to do so, but you don't do it out of because you are the one. You just do it because you choose it. You choose.
That's right. Yeah. And now, so let's talk about some other. One thing I wanted also to mention is, have you ever heard of the voice of God technology? Okay, so we've got the voice of God technology, and we have the voice to skull. Now, this is real technology that was formulated or designed as a weapon. And it comes out of Dharma in America, which is these acronyms get me down, Department of Advanced Research Projects. So basically what they do is that they make weapons. I mean, it's not a conspiracy, it's not a secret.
It's government.
It's government, yeah. I mean, DARPA in America is...
No, I've heard the word, but...
Yeah, it's the agency that develops weapons. And so you can go and just look at that. I mean, it's not even a secret, where they have developed this frequencies, sort of electromagnetic microwave frequencies or pulses that can target people.
Yeah.
You know, and apparently I did hear or did read somewhere that they had used that in the war in Afghanistan. So you know what, if not that any government maybe would want to just unleash that on people, but there are other nefarious projects going, you know, that are not governmental, that might actually just want to influence people, influence crowds. Look at what's going on in Minnesota, Minneapolis, and actually all over the world, or especially in America, what's going on. You don't know how much of that are your real thoughts, you know, to use that as a weapon against people. And what they do is they actually hear voices in their head. So again, but that's a frequency. Now these things is also something that you can protect yourself against. What do you suggest, Antonella, as just keeping you not protected, but keeping yourself balanced, your vibration up?
Well, you're using the word protected. Many people, again, protection comes from fear. And yet, at the same time, I think if you are just starting this work, you need to keep yourself clear, and you need some protection, because how can I put it? When you raise your frequency, most of the time, it takes some time for you to master it. It doesn't come because nobody taught us. It's obvious. So it doesn't come easy. It's not studying in a book and then it happens. It's something. It's like going to the gym. You need to exercise. So I wouldn't mind some protection at the beginning, and then in that case, you would really call or ask for protection from your. Depends on your belief. Again, it depends. Could be. I mean, for me, I was also born on the day of Archangel Michael. So for me, Archangel Michael is with this blue clock is the protector. But for other people, could be again. God is the highest source, energy, whatever you want to call it. For other people, Jesus Christ. I mean, some is the ancestors, where whatever your beliefs are. So I would call for some protection.
Sorry, I'm going to just interject there. Jerry said that there's the patients in the prison, the schizophrenic ones, when they called on that, it helped.
Yes, it did say
they called on the higher being.
Yes, it did say that. So, so let's start with those. Then once your muscles are exercised, and you can even say, I am light, because you are a being of light in the physical body, then you can, and you keep that light up, because it's not that if you do light during the day and then at night you go to the pub and you get trashed. It's gonna, I mean, there's still some imbalance there. So then you can actually call those higher power to also help you out to really with your vibration as well. It's like,
and you can command.
Yes,
command. You don't belong here, leave now.
Yes.
These are not my thought forms, leave now.
Yes.
And you might have to do that for a while, though. It might not be instant.
Yes.
Yeah. So just to be aware, you know, if we and because sometimes I forget even. You know? And I think, oh well, why haven't I just been banishing this? You know, and then it's vanished and bam, then they're gone.
And another thing is also keep yourself grounded. Big roots. Where we are working on this planet Earth, let's remember to keep our roots where we belong to, because otherwise the more we are up there, the less, I mean, the more we are prone to get in touch with all these entities. So that's, sometimes entities can be bigger than we can cope with, and then ask for help. Really ask for help. There is quite a number of people out there. There is
Antonella, you do it.
Yeah,
I know you do a lot of clearing.
And sorry, and it's amazing. This last period is like it's happening so often. Before it was once in a while. Now it's like almost every person that comes. It's like, oh, okay, another one. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's just all the sort of COVID fear.
Yeah, mass media been the master entity at the moment.
Yeah, they are the master entity. We are not fans of mass media and mainstream media.
Yes.
Other things that people can do is water. Water is a very good way, which we've spoken about before, but it's got to do with the negative and the positive ions. So when we have more negative ions in our say our aura or our electromagnetic field, we feel much better. The positive ions are the ones that are the problem, because they know that they've done studies on this, that say when there's a berg wind or a hot wind, the death rate goes up, suicide rate, rape goes up. And that's because there's more positive ions in the air. So ways that we can attract more negative ions is saging yourself. I mean, that's the scientific studies. Promotes more negative ions. You breathe it in, it clears out. So these little cleansing rituals.
Could be even a shower.
A shower.
More on the cold side, though. Because waterfalls, if you go to a waterfall, it's full of negative ions. Keeping a fountain, it also does that. I mean, on the feng shui side, yeah. I mean, Chinese have known that for a long time now, to use fountains and water in the house to clear the space. Yeah. So we're not living by waterfalls, unfortunately, not yet. So, but if you have a shower, or even if you wash yourself with a bucket, if you don't have water at all, just see that when you pour yourself the bucket of water on your head, just see it just clearing, cleansing everything that you don't need, that doesn't belong to you, that can go down the drain and be dissolved into the light. Yeah.
And those that are lucky enough to have a bath or enough water to have a bath, Epsom salts in the bath. And I don't know why, and I don't know the science behind it, but I'm suspecting that also changes. I know that salt does. Like in the Dead Sea, there's so much salt there that it creates a lot of negative ions.
Okay.
So maybe it's the same with Epsom salts, because people always feel so much better after they've been soaked in Epsom salts.
Yes. Also in many cultures, these there was this apotropaic, I think it's called, use of the salt, which is both protection and clearing. So the coarse salt, because the coarse salt absorbs this negativity. That's or dense, let's call it dense energy. It absorbs it. And so, for example, in Italy, I think it's not only in Italy, but in many parts of the world, there is many people call it superstition. It's possible, but if you believe in something, it works. So there is, for example, before the beginning of the show, there is this person with a coarse salt, throwing coarse salt behind, just to fend from energies. It's like a talisman. Yeah. I mean, a talisman is something that protects you and brings positive energy with you. Yeah, I mean, there are people just throwing coarse salts at the gate with the intent. Remember the intent. The word intent is very, very important. It does half of the job, if not more. That by putting coarse salt at the gate, again, words of negative energy. Yeah.
Didn't witches used to put a circle of salt around them?
Yes, this is all. I mean,
it's fine. We can own that.
Yeah, it's been. Let's say that it's been in the culture from time immemorial. Yeah, and there is nothing wrong in looking at what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
But as I say, what do you call in superstition? We now have technology to measure superstition, and that actually it's right. It works.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we had so many people living before us. We are still alive because of that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true. And they didn't have all our modern technology.
No, they don't. They didn't. So they had to refer to all the extrasensory capability that we all have, but we haven't really gone into depth. Also because that's what I think is the bad side of science, that has ward off so many of our faculty, our own faculty. So we need necessarily, a machine. There's nothing wrong with that, but we need again to bring it together. Science and spirituality is finally starting to come together a bit at the time.
Because I think a lot of it is what we call supernatural. It's just science that we don't understand yet.
True.
Science will come up with a solution. So I just wanted to add on there, when it comes to clearing your space and keeping your space cleansed, is apparently that they do make these machines. I know, have you seen those salt rocks? You know, that's like a
The salt lamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently that also puts off negative ions.
I know there is quite a different, that I wouldn't be 100% sure because there is quite a
Controversy.
there is quite a controversy.
But apparently they also have like a little machine that does, I don't know, things. Yeah, pumps up the negative ions. So I don't know what that looks like. I just heard about it.
But please ask questions in the comment thread because it's really interesting for us to answer,
and give us your stories,
to research,
and your experience, and then we, because I think when we share like that, we come closer to solutions anyway.
Yes. 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 And then you try it your own, and if it works for you, it's fine. If it doesn't, it's fine. You look for another one.
Yeah.
So, Tania, thank you very much for today.
Thank you. It's been great. It's been stimulating. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. And so we thank you for making to the end for another episode. And until the next, we wish you a good week.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Okay.